This is the Nexx X.WST3, and if you think it looks familiar, then you'll be correct. This helmet essentially uses the same shell as the X.WED3, which I've previously reviewed and I've been wearing extensively this year, but there are a few changes that make this helmet more suitable for street riders as opposed to adventurists. So let's take a closer look at it, starting with the specs. This particular helmet is the Zero Pro model, which means it is a full carbon construction, and it's a helmet that I've actually seen being made in the factory in Portugal, and I can attest to the level of detail and the amount of work, particularly hand labour, that goes into the making of these helmets. This Zero Pro helmet ships with a clear visor, but it does have this 80% tint visor in the box as well, and these visors take a Pinlock 120 XLT insert, and there is also one of those in the box. It retails at £429, and the Zero Pro is only available in this black carbon finish. You also get a nice storage bag in the box for the helmet, as you'd expect, but there's another little box, and that includes an action cam mount, but unlike its brethren, the X.WED3, this has a mount that goes on the side. It doesn't have a mount that mounts to the chin here, or one that mounts to the top. It's also available in a composite shell version at £349.99 for graphics and £329.99 in plain. And those composite helmets only have a Pinlock 70 insert as opposed to the 120 XLT. All helmets have 3 shell sizes, and that covers the size range from extra extra small to extra 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 large. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning, these two helmets essentially share the same shell. Obviously, this being a street focused helmet, there is no provision to fit a peak, and subsequently the venting on this helmet is slightly different. The front vent tilts as opposed to sliding on the X.WED3. In reality, this means that this is actually slightly easier to operate, I find, than the sliding one, and it still lets a decent amount of air in. You've got air that comes in and gets routed up to the front of the visor to help keep that clear, but you also get a nice flow of air directly through to the mouth area. The vent that's in the chin guard has a foam insert in that, and that can be changed. There's a winter version which blocks the air from coming through more thoroughly, but in the summer you've got a piece of foam which can be removed or washed, and that's good at keeping insects and grit and that sort of stuff out. Further venting comes from a little 2-hole port right in the front of the forehead and 2 sliding openings above either eyebrow. Combine that with the 2 slimline openings on the top, and this helmet does offer a really good amount of ventilation. But that ventilation is also very controllable given the amount of vents that you've got. It's not a kind of all or nothing situation, so you can actually use a combination of these different vents to get just the right kind of airflow depending on the conditions that you're riding in. The eyeball is huge and offers vision not dissimilar to that of an open face helmet. It's something you take for granted on adventure lids, but it's obviously a great feature for road riding. The visor has a nice solid action and can be set in various positions through that action, and it has an easy to access central tab as well as 2 smaller ones at either side. Now in practice these are not that easy to use with gloves, predominantly because I find this front catch can get a little bit sticky, as you can see, but using that central tab is obviously very easy. The visor also use what Nexx call their visor recoil system, so there is a slight spring to this, and as you shut that, you'll notice right at the end as you close it, it pulls it slightly back in, and this creates a nice seal across the top, and I have to say it does seem to work. I've not had any water ingress through the top of this visor since I've been using this. The visor is also quick release, which makes for speedy and easy visor changes. The venturi at the back to help draw the warm air out of the helmet is a different design to that used on the X.WED3. This is slightly larger, it's a little bit more aggressive. It helps with the look of the helmet, I think it works with it, but it's not just for looks. This does also help with aerodynamic stability. This helmet also features a drop-down visor with the control up here on the upper left-hand side. It offers really good coverage. It comes down nice and low. The tint on this is good, not too dark, but it does a good job at helping to keep that sunshine under control. And it's a nice smooth action as well. I've not had any issues with this at all. The interior is plush and comfortable, and it does a good job of wicking away sweat on those hot summer days. It's fully removable for washing, and the cheek pads have an emergency release system which can be seen with this red tab here. It's just a case of pulling that back and pulling the cheeks out, and that obviously makes this much easier for emergency services to get the helmet off without disturbing your neck too much should they need to at the scene of an accident. The chin strap is a traditional double D ring, but one thing I like about it is they don't have a press stud retainer for that extra loose bit of strap. Once you've done this up, you literally just snap that on and it magnetically holds that end in. No kind of fiddling trying to press a press stud. I know it's not much, there's no problem with original press studs, but I quite like this idea in conjunction with the standard double D. The helmet comes prepared for Nexx's XCOM communications unit, so you can have an integrated unit that fits in this little cover here. You pop that off and you've got all the routing for the cables and you can put everything in there. Now I like integrated units, they're nice and sleek and I think they work particularly well on a lot of helmets, but if you've already got a comms unit, then this helmet can still have that fitted. I fitted a Cardo Pack Talk edge onto the X.WED3. You can either put it up here on the side, but actually Mirko at Nexx gave me a little tip and said that you can actually fit it on here. The pad for that does work. All you need to do is just put a little bit of folded up tin foil in this section here to stop this from being able to clip open, and then you can stick the mount straight onto that, and you can actually utilize some of the holes in this for the wiring to give you a neat installation. So on to the most important part. What is it like to ride in? Now I'll start with fit, and I will say that this helmet is suitable for an intermediate oval head shape, and the sizing is pretty much spot on, and I have to admit that I did find this to be a good fit. Subsequently, I found it to be a very comfortable helmet and a relatively quiet helmet. Now obviously that's a little bit subjective, and I've covered that in all of my other helmet reviews. It depends on how well it fits you, it depends on what you're riding, what you're wearing. Now I will say that I always ride with earplugs. I've got a set of Ultimate Ear custom molded earplugs, but I wear that for all of the helmet tests that I do. So when I talk about a helmet being quiet or noisy, just bear in mind that I am wearing earplugs with those. So I've got a level playing field in terms of the comparison of the two, but what some people would describe as noisy with or without earplugs is not a rabbit hole that I really want to go down. But I found, I think because of the fit, the way that we've got a nice amount of coverage under the neck, around the neck roll, I found this to be a pretty quiet helmet. I don't get any whistling from the visor. I don't get any undue noise from the vents. These are pretty slimline, so when these are all closed, you know, it's lovely. Obviously, if you open up all of the vents, you're going to introduce wind noise to the helmet, but at no point did I ever find that I really noticed it to the point that, you know, it's just normal riding wind noise. I wasn't getting annoyed by anything. I wasn't thinking, oh, I wish it didn't do that. So for me, it scores very highly on comfort and it scores highly on noise. Vision is excellent and it's a stable and well balanced helmet. It weighs in on my scales at 1,659 grams, which for a helmet with an integrated sun visor isn't particularly heavy, but by the same token, it's not particularly light either. Thankfully, its balance and stability make for a comfortable all-day riding experience, and I think it's a helmet that works for touring as well as urban and sports riding. I also think it looks pretty badass, particularly with that black visor. So ventilation is good, it doesn't fog, and it's comfortable, as I've said. But have I got any negatives? Well, there's not very many really, to be honest, and I did have to think about it, and they're pretty picky. One thing is that this lever for the drop-down visor took a little bit of a while to get used to using it. It's not necessarily in a weird position. It's not that it's hard to do. You can find that. I don't know if it's just because it's high and up and back that it took me longer to get used to it than some of the other helmets that have got a lever down here on the side, which were maybe a bit more intuitive. You do get used to it, but that's just one thing I noticed. It took me a while, and there was quite a bit of time where I'm actually fishing around trying to find this when I really wanted to pop the visor up or down. The other thing that I noticed is that the helmet creaks. Not when you're wearing it, only when you're putting it on and off. So let's have a listen. Now, as an example, if I compare that to the X.WED3, I'm not getting that noise. Now, the X.WED3 has been worn more, admittedly, but there's definitely a creak there. As I say, you can't hear it when you're riding, so I can't really put that down as a negative, but you know, it's something to be aware of. If you pull one out of the box and do that, and it creaks, don't be surprised, but by the same token, you're not going to notice that when you're riding in it. Outside of that, it's a premium feeling helmet, it's well finished, and it's got some good features. And so far, in the time that I've been wearing it, nothing has broken and nothing has fallen off. And it's been a very enjoyable helmet to riding. So if you do like this style of helmet, I would definitely say it is a helmet that is worth going to take a look at. There is a link in the description that takes you away to give you a little bit more detail around the helmet if you think you need that. But there's also a discount which will save you 10% off this helmet should you decide you want to order one. So if you've got any questions, or if there's something that I haven't covered in this video that you want the answer to, then pop that question in the comment section down below and I'll get back to you with an answer as soon as I can. And all that leaves me to say is, until next time, thanks for watching, take care, ride safe, and I'll see you soon. Bye!